Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. We'll chant Om once together. Synchronize the chanting of Om with your exhalation. Breathe in. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu mavit vishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Gently open your eyes. We'll chant from verses 1 to 5 of chapter 3. Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Jayasi chet karmanaste.
Jayasi chet karmanaste.
Mata buddhir janardana.
Mata buddhir janardana.
Tat kim karmani ghore mam.
Tat kim karmani ghore mam.
Niyojayasi keshava.
Niyojayasi keshava.
Vyamishreneva vakyena.
Vyamishreneva vakyena.
Buddhim mohayasiva me.
Buddhim mohayasiva me.
Tadekam vada nishchitya.
Tadekam vada nishchitya.
Yena shreyohamapnuyam.
Yena shreyohamapnuyam.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Lokesmin dvividha nishtha.
Lokesmin dvividha nishtha.
Pura prokta maya nagha.
Pura prokta maya nagha.
Jnana yogena sankhyanam.
Jnana yogena sankhyanam.
Karma yogena yoginam.
Karma yogena yoginam.
Na karmanam anarambhat.
न कर्मणामनारम्भात्
नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते
नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते
न च सन्न्यसनादेव
न च सन्न्यसनादेव
सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति
सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति
न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि
न हि कश्चित् क्षणमपि
जातु तिष्ठत्यकर्मकृत्
जातु तिष्ठत्यकर्मकृत्
कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म
कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म
सर्वः प्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः
सर्वः प्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः
Hari Om, and a very good day to all of you. So last week we have entered into this verse number 5. Now, having built the foundation in the previous verse, from this verse he is going to get into the details of Karma Yoga. It will be a very gradual build-up. When we did verse number 4, we first saw all the deeper messages, and then in the last session we applied that principle of Viparita Tarka, the reverse logic, and got many more principles. Now all those are very important because those are the things which he is going to expand and provide more depth as we go along in this chapter. Now remember, when you apply that reverse logic, you should be very careful. That reverse logic is not applicable in every situation. You should not apply it in a wrong way and come to erroneous conclusions. I'm saying in life itself. When a person is sorrowful, tears come out of his eyes. But that doesn't mean whenever tears come out of the eyes, that person is sorrowful. If you're not careful, you may apply it in the wrong sense, and when you apply it in the wrong sense, your conclusions will be faulty. Then your approach to any situation will also have an issue. So you should be careful there. See, in the name of logical thinking, most people actually come to erroneous conclusions. Real logic means you take those facts which are absolutely required. You cut off all the unnecessary parts, and then you connect the facts in a coherent way, which is what we can see the master is doing here in the Bhagavad Gita. It is not only the Bhagavad Gita. If you take all the scriptures, if you look at them superficially, there may be no coherence, but if you carefully use the yogic approach and go into the depth, you will find that unnecessary things will be cut off and a beautiful coherence will be there. Most people think when you express an art, that is, since we are talking of creativity, since the stress is on creativity, they think it shouldn't be coherent or logical. That is not true. You take any art, there will always be a logic. There will always be a sequence. The coherence will have to be there. Even if you take the Yoga Sankirtan material, for example, there is a very, very clear coherence moving from one portion to the other. So in life, you should always learn to connect whatever data you have with you in any situation in the right way and form a coherence. Only then you can come to the correct conclusions. Whether it is about a person, that is, let's say you're handling someone in office and you need to assess that person, or it could be something which you need to know about in terms of your work, technicality, whatever it is, or you may be handling your own child. Just based on a few actions, if you conclude and say that you pass judgments and say that person is like this person is like that. That is a very wrong tendency. It is a weakness which the mind has. See, a classic example of that would be when you take a celebrity. Celebrity means one who is in the limelight, one who is well known. Just based on one or two actions, people immediately conclude. See, everyone is going through so many experiences in life. So just based on one or two actions which you see in the public, how can you immediately conclude that that person is like this or that person is like that? Yet you find that 99.9% of the people, they fall for the trap. So as a sadhak, you should develop this habit of collecting facts and then connecting them in the right way so that that coherence is there. Only then your the conclusions which you come to will help you. Otherwise, you will either impulsively come to some conclusion, or some people, they go on collecting and analyzing facts, they never come to any conclusion. So the so-called analysis actually confuses them more. They see this side, they see that side. That's a continuous process. That extreme is also wrong. So you find the right balance in these verses. He gives you certain facts. See, Krishna doesn't make a statement just like that saying, Arjuna, you act. He's giving all the logic, the coherence is being given, is being established. And at the same time, he is not going on analyzing without coming to a conclusion. That also will not help Arjuna. So without falling into these two extremes of impulsively concluding or judging, or endlessly analyzing without coming to a conclusion, if you are able to use whatever data you have in any given situation in an optimum way, you will be successful. That is what we learn from this yogic approach. See, when you are being exposed to the yogic approach, no doubt you're seeing the application of the yogic approach with respect to these verses in the Bhagavad Gita. But it does not stop there. See, the idea of getting exposed to the yogic approach is for you to slowly absorb that principle, all the principles related to the yogic approach, and then you start practicing them in other areas of life also, whether it is a depth, whether it is the right analysis, where should you analyze, where should you stop your analysis. All these are very important. So, what is very interesting is, in this entire chapter, now Lord Krishna will be analyzing life with respect to action. It is not only with respect to action versus actionlessness. We saw that in verse number 4, Naishkarmyam, no? The supreme state of actionlessness, perfection. So this whole chapter is going to revolve around these two concepts only, these two principles. Action means there is wrong action, there is right action, harmful action, actions which can give you a lot of benefits, which can give you success. So many aspects are there, the ingredients of action. How do you perfect your action? How do you perfect yourself by performing right action? So many things are included in that. We are just summarizing and saying action. So one is action and the other is actionlessness. So from this verse onwards, you will be seeing those two principles being used very, very effectively. Towards what purpose? Towards understanding life. So one is in terms of understanding life, and the other is to also find out what is beyond life. What is beyond life in the sense, life as you see it. What is beyond this finite life, the infinite. Both these will be taken up, but in terms of action and actionlessness. Now this is very interesting, because when he talks of Bhakti Yoga, he will be analyzing the entire life with respect to devotion. When it comes to Dhyana Yoga, the yoga of meditation, what is very interesting is every aspect of life will be seen in terms of dhyana, meditation. You know, everything which you do, you can do it in a meditative way. So he'll be getting into a lot of depth there. When it comes to Jnana Yoga, every aspect of life will be analyzed in terms of jnana, knowledge. See, you can do something with an understanding or without an understanding. I'm just very, very briefly giving you one point from there, but there's a lot more to that. Just as it's easy to say Karma Yoga means do your duties, but it's not so simple like that. There is so much to it, you know. So what this shows is that life itself is infinite, and there are infinite ways of understanding life. Karma Yoga is one way. So in every chapter, he'll be giving you different ways by which you can understand your own life. Generally, people understand life according to their conditioning. In a single way, unidimensional way, that is when they get into a lot of problems. See, what do I mean by people understand life in a unidimensional way? Now, we can see that, if you take people from different fields, it'll be very interesting. A businessman will see life as a business only. Everything will be profit or loss. He does not have the capacity to see life beyond that. If he develops the capacity, then he becomes a philosopher, he becomes a yogi, But I'm saying the normal trend is, you have a particular nature which conditions you. You have certain beliefs, you have certain way of functioning. Now you see life only in that way. So for a businessman, everything is nothing but profit or loss. Should I spend money for my child's education or no? Should I not spend? What will it what will I get back in return? Should I get married or not? What is the criteria with which he will decide? It will only be profit or loss. I am working and my partner also is working, so our income, the total income put together is so much. So there is a gain, there is a profit. Yes, I will go ahead with the marriage. I know many people who think like that. I will take care of my parents because they took care of me. It's like a business, Now, if you take a scientist, everything will be according to whatever his knowledge of sciences, his or her knowledge of sciences. He will look at life in that way only. A physicist will look at everything in terms of atoms and subatomic particles and all these. A biologist will look at everything in terms of cells. Living beings, non-living beings. Very, very clear-cut definitions. If you ask me, is it wrong? Definitely no. The businessman is also right. The biologist is also right. The physicist is also right. Everyone is right in his or her own way. But the question is it a total vision? Definitely no. A lawyer will look at everything legally. Every transaction which is being done, he will see the legal side of it. There is nothing wrong, as I told you, there is nothing wrong with that. But the entire perception of life is confined to your nature, to whatever limited concepts you have. An emotional person will interpret life, will see life in an emotional way only. A business-minded person, when he goes in for marriage, it will be based on the money factor. A knowledgeable person, a person who has a lot of value for knowledge, when he goes in for marriage, it will be an exchange of knowledge. Oh, we can have interesting conversations, good intellectual companionship. That is how he'll view it. Oh, this person reads a lot of books, so it will be wonderful to marry her. Vice versa. A lady also feeling the same way. Now, an emotional person will say, is that person very sweet? Yes, then I will get into a relationship with him or her. So it is very interesting. You have your nature and your limitations. We can call it as a finite outlook. The finite outlook which is defined by your nature, your specific nature. And that specific nature will make you think in a particular way. And that is how you will be viewing life. Actually, your views about the world, they define what you are. If you say that the world is very negative, it means you're having a lot of negative tendencies within you. If you say the world is very positive, then you have a lot of positive thoughts and positive emotions within you. The movie being the same, one person likes it so much, one person hates it so much. So the same thing with respect to the movie, this real movie of your life. So when you view life in a unidimensional way, then that will clash with many others who may not have that view. And that is where the problem starts. Why is it that two individuals get into a quarrel? I'm not talking of other kinds of quarrels. I'm saying in terms of ideologies, or even it could be a simple opinion about some issue. So they get into a very heated argument. Why? Because this person sees that in a particular way and this person sees that in a different way. And the first person feels he is only right. The second person feels he is only right. So as a sadhak, what you should do is you should now develop this capacity to think in a multi-dimensional way. That is an essential aspect of this yogic approach. The moment you develop this capacity to go beyond your limitations and understand life, then you will not have a clash with anyone else, because you will always be able to see what the other person's point of view is and easily accommodate that. Most of the quarrels in life comes because two people are unable to see each other's views. One person is very emotional and he is approaching the situation emotionally. There is no point in giving him logic and explaining things in a logical way to him. What is there to worry? This is what it is. This is what. Now that is how you are seeing it. So the moment you understand the other person's point of view here means how the other person views life, how the other person is relating to life, then you will start talking the other person's language. Language here doesn't mean literal language. I mean the style. The approach itself will automatically be modified. So when you relate to a child, you need to understand how a child views life. And accordingly, when you communicate, you will be very effective. So each one is made differently. It's a beautiful variety which we have. That's what they call diversity. See, just as when you go to a forest, you will find different kinds of trees, wild flowers, fruits, leaves. So many differences are there, and that is what gives the beauty. The beauty of the world is its diversity. Just imagine if everyone around you, they all start thinking exactly like you, behaving exactly like you, repeating whatever you're saying. Won't life become so boring? It'll become a very mechanical, robotic life. What gives that life? Here I am using the word life, in an adjectival way. What gives that spirit to your life is the diversity only. But unfortunately, when you are conditioned by your unidimensional thinking, feeling, and accordingly speaking and acting, then you view life itself in a very restricted way. And then there is a lot of clash with others that disturbs your mind. You lose your peace of mind because of this inability to expand your perception. So yogis have a totality view. They have this capacity to understand life in infinite ways. That is why every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is entitled differently. See, yoga is one. But every chapter you will find one yoga. Not that there are different yogas. Yoga is only one, but different approaches are there. So here you have karma yoga. And then elsewhere you may have karma sannyasa. Then you may have dhyana yoga. You have bhakti yoga. So different approaches towards life are given by the same person. There is no conflict because essentially life is diverse. The world's nature is defined by diversity only. This is very important because when we go into the depth of this verse, especially in the second line where he says prakriti jai gunaihi. Prakriti jai gunaihi means the nature, the quality is born of nature. So the gunas of each one is going to be different. So he says the first thing in karma yoga is you have to understand that different actions spring from different gunas. Gunas means qualities. And each one will have his or her own set of qualities. And there is a beauty in that. The way a mother relates to a child and the way a father relates to a child are so different. Each one is so beautiful, so wonderful in its own way. The problem is, in the name of spirituality, again people become unidimensional. They just understand something from the scriptures and they conclude that this is what is spirituality. Thereafter, they start looking at life just from that angle. And then they classify all others who don't fit into their criteria as worldly, spiritual. So many divisions, so many judgments they start passing. That is not true spirituality. Spirituality is becoming like an ocean where you are all accommodative. You have your principles. Principles are not going to change. But when it comes to dealing with people, you see what is their point of view and you adapt your communication accordingly. That is exactly what Krishna does. In the entire Bhagavad Gita, he understands Arjuna's point of view, how is Arjuna looking at this war? See, Krishna is looking at this war as something, as a tool to establish righteousness. But Arjuna is not looking at the war that way. He is looking at the war as fighting with all my friends and cousins and all that. That is how he is viewing. Krishna clearly understands that. So slowly, he is giving various aspects of this wisdom so that Arjuna begins to see life from a total perspective. This is what a Tamil Siddha, he said, Kattradu Kaiman Alavu. Whatever we learn, whatever we know, is just little bit only. Kalladadu Ulagalavu, which means what we don't know is as vast as this universe. That statement is not merely about knowledge. It is about how you perceive life using your knowledge. So whatever you are looking at, your understanding of life, that is very, very limited. So that is why you find a master keeps adapting. In one chapter he'll be, see, when he is stressing on karma, he will say karma is the highest. When he is stressing on bhakti, he will say bhakti is the highest. Now you will get confused. You will say, tell me one thing, like what Arjuna is asking. You tell me one thing decisively. Karma or knowledge, karma or bhakti. So you are unable to see things from a higher perspective. So even before we go into the depth of all these verses, just the fact that Krishna is explaining the entire life and what is beyond life in terms of action and actionlessness, that itself gives us a very powerful message. See, it is very interesting. There are people who are devotees of Lord Shiva. They swear by the Mahashiva Purana. There are devotees of Lord Vishnu. They say Bhagavatam is only that is only this, to be believed. Then there are people who are devotees of Lord Muruga. No, Skanda Puranam. That is only the key. So each one says all this. But what is interesting is all the 18 Puranas were written by one person, Vyasa. So he, being a true master, he could see different ways of relating to God also. See, why is this so important? When you learn to relate to life or the world in a multidimensional way, then when it comes to the highest, the infinite, which is God, you will not go about saying whatever I think or feel alone is right. You will see that there are infinite ways of relating to God. The same infinite can be represented as Narayana, can be represented by Narayana, can be represented by Shiva, by Lord Muruga, by Lord Ganesha. They are all representing that infinite. A yogi has that high vision, that totality vision. So if you want to become a yogi, it is very important for you to develop this approach. You start off with your life. You start off first with your near and dear ones. Have you ever understood what is the perspective of your own partner? No, you don't have time for that because you're caught up with your perspective. True love comes when you start seeing others' perspectives also. How is my partner viewing life? It's a very interesting sadhana. I'm giving you this as a homework, not just for today, but for your whole life. How is my boss viewing work? The moment you understand that, now you will be able to perform and present your work in such a way that it will suit your boss. You will get all your promotions, you will grow in your career. Otherwise, whatever you're doing may be correct, but it may not suit the other person. So you will go on complaining. See, as a sadhak, stop complaining and always look for solutions. So this was beautifully demonstrated by all the masters. See, Lord Buddha, when people saw a flower, now he gave a technique, a meditation technique, using the flower. You were able to see the flower. Now he said, close your eyes and visualize the flower and then go inside the flower. So from there he took them to a state of nothingness. That is what you will find in the Bhagavad Gita. If you take the principle of action, now through action, what is right action, what is wrong action, all that will be given. The entire philosophy, the ancient wisdom will be presented according to action, and then what is beyond action, actionlessness. So the whole wisdom can be explained in terms of action. That is what he is doing. Supposing the word emotion is given to a master, the entire ancient wisdom will be explained in terms of emotions. So a true master is beyond all these limited beliefs and concepts. He has the capacity to think in an infinite way, if there is a terminology like that. His approach is multi-dimensional, is infinite. So if a person who has a lot of value for money, or let's say who has a lot of value for money, if he comes to a master, he can explain this higher wisdom in terms of money also. What can money give you? Up to what extent it can give you? And what is beyond money? Everything he'll be able to explain. If a businessman approaches a master, he'll be able to talk the language of business to be able to communicate to that person. If an emotional person approaches a master, he can package this wisdom in an emotional way, which will appeal to the other person. So as a sadhak, you should learn to develop this quality. When you do that, number one, all these unnecessary quarrels and clashes will stop. Because you see, even in a family, let's take husband and wife, most of the quarrels are based on, I feel this is right, I feel this is right. Now both are feeling that two opposites are right, so naturally there will be a quarrel. So no point in saying the other person does not understand. How do you conform your communication to make the other person understand? Supposing a person goes for fishing. Now what does he do? There is a fishing rod, and then he puts a bait and then places it under the water and waits for the fish to come and get caught. Now what is the bait which that person uses? It is some food which the fish likes. It is not a food item which he likes. He may like ice cream. Therefore, if he keeps ice cream there and if he keeps it, no fish will come. It's the same principle here. So you find all masters had that Catholicity, that totality approach. They never confined themselves to any one particular way, one particular religion, one particular way of approaching life. A true master is beyond all religions, beyond all what in the Sanskritam language we call as sampradayas. Sampradayas means one particular way, See, like there is a person who follows that, then his student follows the same pattern. Now, that is just sampradayas are established based on habits which are followed by a group of people over a long period of time. But a real master, he views all sampradayas equally, as long as they are attuned to the fundamental principles, the higher principles of spirituality. That is what he will be seeing. Whereas most of the followers, they get caught up with the external means, and then they start fighting against each other. My way is only correct, your way is wrong, your way, they go on fighting, they go on quarreling. And all that actually limits the powers of your mind. They don't allow your consciousness to expand. So if you truly want to understand what karma yoga is, you need to develop this total approach, the infinite approach we can call it. Otherwise, when you're getting into the depth of this chapter, you will become a fanatic, because throughout this chapter he'll be emphasizing on action. So you will become so fanatic about it that all other aspects will be left out. And if you go to the other chapters, he'll start stressing on so many other things. Actually, in one of the verses, in a later chapter, he says, a yogi is superior to a jnani. So be a yogi. Because see, in that particular context, he is not only to a jnani, to a karmi and to a bhakta also, he says. So, yogi bhavarjuna, therefore be a yogi. Now, what exactly that means? What is the context? Why is he emphasizing that aspect? We have to see all that. So, people just pick up a few portions here and there from the scriptures, and that too according to what their conditionings are. And then they just quote all that as if they have fully understood the scriptures. No. So if you are a true devotee of God, even if you approach it from a bhakti point of view, if you say, I am a devotee of Lord Narayana, you will respect the others' devotion towards the other forms of God also. If you say, I am a true devotee of Lord Shiva, you will again have same respect, because what is to be respected is the quality of devotion. Whether it is towards Narayana or whether it is towards Lord Shiva or Muruga or Shakti, Parvati, Lakshmi, all these things may be different. But the fact is, the devotion and surrender which a person has, that is what is going to uplift that person. That is what is going to destroy the ego. So when you understand that principle, then there is absolutely no clash. Same way when it comes to jnana also, knowledge. So it is a very powerful aspect of the yogic approach which is being employed throughout the Bhagavad Gita. And as a good sadhak, if you can absorb that and start practicing that principle in your life, where will you start? Start from your immediate family. Have you ever thought about how does my child look at the world? Look at the world means how does my child view the world? In terms of understanding, that is thoughts, in terms of emotions, what does my child value? What does my spouse value? There was a couple who had asked for advice. This happened long back. So the basic thing is that the wife had certain complaints about the husband and the husband had certain complaints about the wife. And what the wife was saying is, he's not spending any time with me. And what the husband was saying is, I have a lot of work, the work pressure is there and all that. After all, for whom am I working? I'm working for her only, for the family, you know. So I expect her to understand. So it was a big tussle. So then when I explained to them that, see, you are thinking from your angle and you are thinking from your angle. So there is a clash. So why don't you exchange views? Get into the shoes of the other person. So to the husband, I told him, see, you are no doubt working, you're working for the family, all that may be right. But what is she wanting? Have you ever thought about that? So when he did that sadhana, it was amazing to him because her value was for the quality time spent together, you know. And similarly, when the wife put herself in the husband's shoes, she understood his value was in a deeper understanding of the motives. In other words, what he was saying is just because I'm not spending time doesn't mean I don't have love. So that little more depth in that understanding. So when both of them came together and developed this total perception with respect to that situation, when they broke the barriers of their limited visions, then all the issues got resolved. All their complaints went away. So you can practice this from your immediate family, somebody who is very close to you. Instead of you having your perception and expecting the other person to fit into that perception, see what the other person's perception is. Same thing when you go to office and when you're working. I will work in my way. It doesn't work that way. So what are the expectations of the management? Just see the other person's point of view. That is what you need to fulfill. Don't get into a complaining mode, because many people, after learning this, they will say, I am seeing the other person's point of view, but the other person is not seeing. The moment you complain, it means you're not being solution oriented. Even if one person changes, the relationship will become better. The situation will improve. So with that total perception, the total attitude, as we can call it, now when you read these verses, first we are starting with verse number 5 and then we are going to go further. It is going to give you an amazing picture, an amazing in-depth understanding about life. See, every master, when he takes up a particular topic, a particular principle, he will go into so much of depth that through that principle your entire perception will change. You will develop so much of depth in your life. That is what we are going to see here. Your whole view about life, about action, everything will change. So what is he saying in verse number 5? Not even for a moment can anyone in reality remain inactive. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtati akarmakrit. Akarmakrit. Karmakrit means performing action. Akarmakrit means not performing action, being inactive. So he says, in reality, no one can remain even for a moment without action. So there is a big shift in terms of intensity between verse number 4 and verse number 5. See again, if you carefully follow that, you will be able to see that. What is the shift? In verse number 4, he said, stopping action is of no use. It'll not give you success. If you stop activity or if you don't act, the false renunciation will not give you siddhi. That is a very gentle way of putting it. Now, in this verse, he is not saying if you stop action, you will get the... He says you cannot stop activity. Nobody can stop activity. He is giving you the logic as to why one cannot stop activity. That is in the second line. The first line, he makes a very strong statement saying that you don't have a choice at all. In the previous verse, it looks as if you have a choice. Oh, I will not act or I will act. But here he says no. No one can in reality remain inactive even for a moment, he says. And then in the second line, he gives the logic. Why is that? Because all are indeed made to act. Karyate. Karyate means made to act. Helplessly, avashaha. By what? Prakriti jayi gunaihi. By the qualities born of nature. So that is the logic given to support the statement which he is making in the first line, first half of this verse. Now, you may get this doubt. So in the previous verse he was talking about false renunciation. So isn't it possible that a person can shirk all the duties, which means he is giving up action? Isn't that a possibility? Now, what is interesting, he is saying, yes, he may give up one activity, but he would have taken up some other activity. It is not possible to give up action as a whole. That is what he is saying here. So since you cannot anyway give up action, you cannot escape action, what these masters are saying is you might as well learn what is the technique of right action, karma yoga, and perform your actions in the best possible way. See, this is something which you need to practice. It's a very powerful principle. That is, when you're put in a situation where you have to go through that situation, now instead of grumbling, you might as well go through that situation in a cheerful way. In life, you never do that. When you are put in a situation and you know that you have to go through those experiences, there is no escape from that. Yet you will go on complaining. There are certain aspects in those experiences may not be so much appealing to you. But you will go on highlighting those aspects and complaining. Now what these great masters are saying is, how do you stop your complaints? By a simple understanding that anyway you have to go through those. So you might as well go through them in a cheerful way. See, for example, when the COVID was rampant and all that, and so many lockdowns were there, people were getting so frustrated about the lockdowns. Fear and so many negative emotions were causing tremendous turmoil, we can say, in people's minds. But if you were to think about it, what is the best approach there? When the government is declaring a lockdown, now can you change that? No. You have to go through that. So instead of going through that in a sorrowful way, in an agitated way, why don't you go through that in a cheerful way? Yes, this is what it is. Next few weeks, they have issued a lockdown. Now, let me cheerfully go through that. That quality is called titiksha. Titiksha in Sanskritam language, titiksha means the capacity to go through pain or suffering in a very cheerful way. It is easily translated as tolerance, but it is not somehow tolerating. It is going through a so-called negative experience in a very positive way. I am telling you the principle which he is using in this verse, because it's the same principle he is using. Everyone has to act. You cannot escape from activity. That's what he's saying in this verse. And then later on he'll be building and saying, therefore you might as well learn to act properly, act in a more cheerful way. By trying to escape, you will not achieve anything. So that principle you can apply in your life also. Having started something, now you will have to go through that. You might as well start enjoying your experiences right now. By complaining, by resisting, are you achieving anything? You are only getting more and more agitated. This is a very simple, practical principle which he is giving. If you can just absorb that and put it into practice, you will find almost all your mental agitations will go away. Because most of your agitations are caused because of frustration. You are complaining about something which you cannot change, which you cannot do anything about. Starting from weather. Weather is hot, you complain. If the weather is cold, you complain. And you know, if you think about it, you cannot do anything about the weather. Yet you go on complaining. When we come to the gunas, we'll see how each one is acting helplessly according to his or her own qualities. So when you understand that, you become very objective. Even your complaints about others also will go away. Instead of complaining, now you will start thinking in terms of how do I handle the other person? Yes, that person has this unpleasant quality, nature. Now, what psychology should I apply in order to handle that particular quality? That will be your focus. So it's a beautiful principle of accepting something which is inevitable and then going through that experience in a cheerful way. Trying to live your life in a better way. The opposite of that is a tendency to escape. See, since you are unable to escape, you get into complaints. But those complaints are coming from a tendency to escape, an inability to accept situations as they are. That is, to accept that this is what the reality is and I have to face them. So the tendency of escapism is a major block to when it comes to Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga insists on you facing life, in you facing all the challenges. Karma Yoga says you should live your life fully. The tendency to escape, it tries to pull you away from life. And when you're unable to do that, you're neither here, there nor are you here, so you start complaining. And when the more you complain, that increases your mental agitations. And when your mental agitations increase, you will not be peaceful. You can neither be peaceful in the world, nor will you be able to sit quietly, meditate and move towards the infinite. So in this particular verse, he is very strongly condemning that tendency to escape. In the previous verse, he introduced it in a very gentle way, as if you are having a choice. But now he is being very, very straightforward, and he says, listen, this is what is the truth. You either take it or leave it. Whether you take it or leave it, it doesn't matter. This is how things are going to be. You might as well conform your way of functioning to what the realities of life are. As a great thinker said, you can never break a law. You can only break yourself against a law. It's a very interesting way of putting it, So these are all the fundamental laws of life with respect to action, karma. So what is he saying? He is using many words and phrases to increase the intensity, where he says you should not escape. Instead of just merely saying don't escape, he is putting it in a very strong way. You can see in the first line, First thing he says is nahi kshanam api. Nahi kaschit kshanam api. Kaschit will come to next. The first thing is not even for a moment. This is the first way, the first aspect where he is strongly saying you cannot escape from life. Even for a moment, he says. 90% I'll follow this, 10% I'll escape. No, he says, even for a moment, not even for a moment, number one. And then you may say, yes, I agree, but will there be any exceptions? Probably some people can do it. He says, kaschit, anyone. This law is applicable to everyone. See, later on in this chapter, Lord Krishna himself will be saying, he'll be telling Arjuna, understand Arjuna, that I don't need anything from the three worlds. There is nothing in the three worlds which can actually give me any happiness or which can give me anything, because I already have everything. I am a very manifestation of infinite. Yet, I am acting, he says, because that is the niyati, that is the law, that is how this world has been created. See, if you read the Puranic stories, for each function they have, they talk about a particular god. For example, Brahma for creation, Shiva for destruction, Narayana for maintenance, and even the lower gods like Indra for rain, sun god, Surya for sun, like this, each one. Now, what is interesting is the Puranic stories, the incidents have been very, very carefully given, where all the gods are performing their duties to perfection. Not even for a single moment, any of them stopped doing their duties, his or her duties. The sun is constantly shining. You see the nature, the action, whatever the allotted duty is, that particular object or being is doing that to perfection. It is only when it comes to a human being, since there is so much of confusion, the human being starts complicating things. See, imagine the stature of Lord Narayana or Lord Shiva. They are direct manifestations of the infinite. Yet they do their duties. That is how it is given in the Puranas. Nobody is there to question them. See, generally we do things when somebody is there to watch us. When nobody is watching us, we will stop doing it, That shows lack of responsibility. So here he says kaschit means anyone, no one is an exception. So first is not even for a moment. Second, there is second way, we can say a backdoor and exit which a mind can look for is probably there are exceptions. No one. Everyone is subject to this law. Then third word which he uses is jatu, in reality. In reality means this is the law of life. You can never change the realities of life. This is how it is ordained. It is called karma niyati. The entire world is governed by these various laws. This is one such law. The law is that you can never remain inactive. So, and then that's what he's saying. Akarmakrit tishtati. Karmakrit means performing action. Akarmakrit means opposite of that, being inactive. Tishtati means remain, being established. So, actually the statement is complete if he just says you cannot remain inactive. That's all the message is. But that is not giving a punch. He wants to add more power to that, so that the mind of the sadhak absorbs this idea fully. See, why is it that when it comes to these great truths, why is it that these masters, they always add so much of power to it? Otherwise, see, the entire wisdom is so simple to give. You are the self. You are the infinite. Now go home. No impact will be there. So the master always thinks in terms of how to increase the power in this wisdom when it is communicated. See, when you are communicating something to someone, if you communicate it in a bland way, it is like food without salt. There is no taste. That food is not so enjoyable. Similarly, the beauty of the scriptures, the beauty of these great masters, is the method of their communication, is in the power they add to simple concepts. So here the principle is very simple. You cannot remain inactive. But he doesn't put it that way. Three parts that he adds to that statement, which all three put together, they add so much of power, it creates a tremendous impact in the mind. So when you're reading that statement, don't read it as, okay, no one can remain inactive, fine, over. Next line. There will be no transformation. It should not be read that way. Not even for a moment. Nahi kaschit kshanam. Kshanam means, you may ask me whether that is equivalent to 1 second and all that. It's not like this, just a moment. Actually, it is lesser than a second also, which is difficult for the mind to conceive. So we will say a moment to make it simple. So not even for a moment, which means 24 hours, 365 days, this law is functioning. Sir, morning till evening I will follow this. Just in the middle, about 1 hour, if you can give me, I'll do, I'll shirk my duties. Not even for a moment, number one. Because the law is functioning. It's like saying when I'm driving a car, 90% of the journey, just for 5 minutes I will doze, Rest of the time I'll be very, very much alert and awake. That 5 minutes is enough. Why 5 minutes? 10 seconds if you doze, that is enough to meet with an accident. So when it comes to following these niyatis, you have to understand that niyati, the law, and then conform your life according to that. So when you read this line, now with this background, let us read it. Nahi kaschit kshanam api. Nahi kshanam api. Not even for a moment, kaschit, can anyone, jatu, in reality. This is what is the reality, he says. And then, tishtati akarmakrit. Anyone remain inactive. Not even for a moment can anyone in reality remain inactive. See, when you read it like that, now that gives you so much of power, If you read it blandly, nobody can remain inactive. Okay. It does not give you power. See, this is the way when you're listening to this discourse, and then later on also when you're writing your points, you should feel that and then do it. That adds power. See, what adds power to your statements is your bhavana, is your feeling. So from these three phrases, not even for a moment, and then anyone, and in reality, he is increasing the bhavana. And when he increases the bhavana, the quality of that statement, the intensity of that statement increases. So that is another principle which we can derive from this line. That is, in life, everything which you do, you should do it in a full way, with your full bhavana, with a lot of intensity. Then only the quality of your action will keep on increasing. See, as we go along in Karma Yoga, both will be covered. The quantity, that is what actions you should do, how much you should do. But equally important is the quality. Each and every action, how intense, what should be the intensity? It should be full. And what will give you that intensity? What will increase the quality? That is your bhavana. So a common person can also say, Tattvamasi, that thou art, you are the infinite. A master, when he says you are the infinite, it comes from the deepest core. There is so much of power in that statement. That is why when you hear a master say that, give that wisdom, it does something to you. So in life you are performing so many activities. You're saying so many things. There is no connection between what you're saying, what you're doing, and what you're feeling. That bhavana is something else and you're saying something else. So start practicing that from this moment. This is another very powerful sadhana tip. Everything which you say or do, there should be that intensity. Even when you wish someone, when you say good morning, you should genuinely feel that that person's morning should be good. It shouldn't be mechanical. Today everything has become mechanical. Good morning, they say and they go. See, even when we start this, Hari Om. Hari Om, it is said, Hari Om, a very good day to all of you. That I'm genuinely meaning it. Hari Om means I'm bowing down to that infinite reality within you. You are all not ordinary people who are listening to this. You are different forms of that infinite. So we first bow down to that supreme reality. A very good day to all of you means the genuine bhavana, your day should be so wonderful. Not make a Hari Om, very good day. There is no meaning in that. So start practicing it in everything which you're saying and doing. See the bhavana of the statement. The logic of it, the depth of it, we'll come to. But without recognizing this bhavana and going with that flow, if you merely do an analysis of the depth, you will not get the real message. So when he says, not even for a moment can anyone in reality remain inactive, you can see the passion with which Krishna must have made this statement. The intensity with which Krishna is giving this wisdom. That is a beautiful quality which you can practice, Anything which you do it with that full vigor. Give it your best shot. There is nothing like this is small, then this is big and all that. A master is always like that. 10,000 people or 1 lakh people may be waiting in an auditorium to hear a talk of his. He will talk with passion. And then when he goes somewhere, just one person may ask something sincerely. With the same passion, he will answer this person also. Assuming that the question is genuine, For a master, there is no difference between a huge following and one person. It's all one and the same. It is the quality of the action which matters, not merely the quantity. This is a very, very important principle of Karma Yoga. See, what we are doing in this yogic approach is, before the principle comes in the next verses, from the previous verses itself, those principles are being introduced to you. So that when we come there, we can go into more depth. That is a very interesting or a very effective way of gaining this wisdom. So, even though the basic message of this verse is one thing, the construction of the verse also conveys so much, and all those principles will be covered in the coming verses. So it is worthwhile to absorb those messages also. So in the next session, we'll get into each of these aspects, not even for a moment. Why is he saying that? How? See, when we go into the depth of each of these aspects, like not even for a moment, and then any one, and then in reality and all that, you will begin to see how each of these words are actually adding to the power, adding to the intensity. And when you absorb that energy, now the very tendency to escape, to be tamasic or lazy in your life will be completely pulverized. That is the aim of this first line, to literally pulverize and smash all the tamas which you have in you. Tamas, simply translated as laziness, Because as long as you have this tamasic nature, that will become a big block in Karma Yoga. So he'll be using very many methods with tremendous bhavana, with a lot of intensity to pulverize that. So we will go into all these aspects in the next session. But today, as a small homework, if you can do this, if you can read this line and feel what he's trying to give with that feeling, When I say reading, not even for a moment can anyone in reality remain inactive. Not that way. Not even for a moment. See, first visualize yourself. You're constantly functioning in life. Not even for a moment can anyone, instead of anyone you put yourself, not even for a moment can I in reality remain inactive. Just read that a few times meditatively. Now you will see that it will do something to you. It'll start energizing you. It'll build that energy to remove your tamas. You will become very active in life. Unless that tendency to be active and prompt and all these things are awakened within you, how will you be able to practice Karma Yoga? So you just do that small exercise, homework today, and you come back next week. We will go into each of these aspects and we will go on adding power, not merely to the statement externally, but we'll go on adding power to our minds using these statements, using this wisdom. That is the aim. Okay? So now we'll do the Nididhyasana, meditation. Gently close your eyes. Do deep breathing. With every breath, I am becoming more and more relaxed. Feel and experience the divine vibrations. With every breath, I am going deeper and deeper into myself. I am not this body. I am not this mind. I am not this intellect. I am that supreme infinite self. From this moment onwards, I choose to root out my tamas, laziness within me. I choose to live my life according to the principles of Karma Yoga. I am Swayam Prakashit, self-illuminating. Offer your gratitude to God Supreme. Offer your gratitude to your Guru and all the holy masters. Slowly come back. Wriggle your fingers, your toes. Rub your palms together to create a warmth. Cup your eyes with your palms. Gently rub your eyes, cheeks, forehead, top of the head, back of the head and neck. Slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. So today we had a very powerful session, the power which comes from the bhavana. So in the yogic approach, we don't really see the statements alone. We see what is the bhavana behind the statements, what is the energy. The bhavana only gives that energy. What is the energy behind each and every word, and we absorb that. It is easy to understand these things intellectually, but it's very difficult to absorb the energy behind these words. And the great masters, that is why they have devised the yogic approach, which helps us to absorb that energy. Okay? So do that homework which I gave you. See, all these will increase your capacity, the depth in your perception, and it will increase your capacity to receive the higher healing energy also. Okay? I'll see you in the next session. Thank you very much. Hari Om.